With effect from the 26th of October 2024, there's a new duty on employers to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment of their employees in the course of their employment. The aim of the new duty is to try and make employers take more preventative action to stop sexual harassment from occurring in the workplace, rather than just dealing more reactively to complaints or allegations of sexual harassment that are raised. Employers could potentially have a defence to such a claim of sexual harassment if they can show that they've taken all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment from occurring. So there's already quite a good reason why employers should have good policies in place to try to prevent sexual harassment. However, the new duty goes further because it puts a proactive obligation on employers to take steps to avoid that harassment from happening at all.
The key focus areas that every organisation should be focusing on are looking at their policies, making sure they have robust anti-harassment and discrimination and equal opportunities policies, training both for the wider organisation, senior leadership and managers, and making sure that the messaging and the tone comes from the top down. There are various policies that employers should have in place. One of the main policies is a robust anti-harassment and bullying policy. This should set the tone and set clear expectations of a zero-tolerance environment in the organisation.
It's important to make sure that these policies specifically address sexual harassment. Employers need to make sure that they have in place clear policies so that the employees know how to report concerns regarding sexual harassment in the workplace. That might be included in a wider policy dealing with equality, diversity and inclusion. However, it could be a standalone policy.
One of the other supporting policies is events policies. So one of the greatest risk areas for most organisations where there is some level of alcohol consumed at social events or at client events, employers should have clear expectations of what's expected at those events and should document it in a clear policy that sets out those expectations and the repercussions or consequences of non-compliance. Policies on their own aren't adequate as a reasonable step to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. They need to be brought to life by training. And as a minimum, this training should set out clear expectations of what's expected of the organisation, how you report sexual harassment, what to do if you witness sexual harassment, and what to do if sexual harassment is reported to you.
In addition to that, managers and HR teams need to know how to appropriately handle complaints that have been raised to them to try and encourage employees to speak up. Training should also be kept under review. It needs to be given regularly, and different types of training should be given to different levels of employees. So all employees need to be made aware how to raise a complaint if they have concerns about sexual harassment.
It's also not going to be adequate if it's just a box ticking exercise or if it's stale. It needs to be regularly updated. It needs to be tailored to your organisation, so anticipate specific scenarios that are specific to your industry, your sector and your organisation.
Businesses need to be thinking now about the reasonable steps they need to have in force to show that they've complied with the duty to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. What's considered to be reasonable will vary according to the specific business. So an employment tribunal would take into account things like the size of the business, the resources that are available to the business, and the industry that the business operates in. As a minimum, all employers should be thinking about identifying risks that are specific to their business. There are both financial and reputational risks to employers that fail to comply with the new duty. Financially, if an employee has a claim for sexual harassment that they bring in the employment tribunal, and the employer is found to have failed to comply with their duty to have taken reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment, then the employment tribunal can award an uplift of up to 25% on the compensation for harassment.
And as discrimination compensation in a tribunal is uncapped, this is going to be a potentially hefty financial hit for organisations.
Reputationally, in addition to the fact that an employee could bring a claim in the public forum of an employment tribunal, there's also the risk that the Equality and Human Rights Commission could get involved and could investigate such a complaint and try to take enforcement action directly.
So they have certain actions that they can do, up to a fine, but firstly they would probably look at your business, understand how you aren't complying with the new duty, and sit down with you to put together an action plan to ensure you are complying. And then I think it would be for the bigger organisations where there's consistent non-compliance, where they would fine an organisation. There are lots of key focus areas that businesses should be looking at on implementing that could be considered to be reasonable steps to comply with this new preventative duty to prevent sexual harassment.
At Collyer Bristow, we can help your business take steps to comply with the new obligation. We will work in collaboration with you to ensure that the policies and procedures you have in place and the training packages you roll out to staff are tailored to the specific risks that you've identified for your business and for your specific industry. If you have any questions or concerns about the new legislation, please get in touch with the employment team at Collyer Bristow and we'd be happy to help.